Hey guys, this is Doug May with That Audio Guy. In this video, we're going to take a look at the envelope section here on the layer page. Envelopes are used in synthesizers to control the contour or shape of the sound. The most common envelope is the amp envelope, which controls the volume. What I'll do in this video is use that particular envelope to show you the principle behind how envelopes work. Envelopes can take one of two forms. They'll either be complex or simple. A simple envelope uses these four parameters. These letters stand for attack, decay, sustain, and release. The attack determines how long it takes for a sound to get to a certain volume when you play a note on your keyboard. The decay determines how long it goes from that full volume down to a sustained volume. The sustain controls what level that sustained volume is. And then the release controls how long it takes once you release your key to go from that sustained volume to no volume. Let me show you what that looks like. So what we'll do is we'll click right here on this magnifying glass. It'll open the envelope zoom window, and you can see this two-dimensional plot, this graph right here. This represents what I was just talking about. So the start right here to this first point is the attack. From this first point right here to this second point is the decay. The level of this second point is the sustain. And from the sustain point to this last point is the release. In the case of this envelope here, what's going to happen when I play a note on the keyboard is you'll hear it come to that full volume pretty quickly. It'll die off down to that sustain level and it'll hold there until I release the note. It sounds like this. So what would happen if I were to take this attack slider and move it up a little bit? If we click in here, we can see that what it did was it lengthened the distance between these first 2 points. Now if I play a note on the keyboard, you'll hear that it'll take longer to get to that full volume before it decays off. Likewise, if we were to turn up this decay slider and then click in this window, you'll see that it extended the distance between the second point and the third point. When I play a note, you'll hear that once it gets to its full volume, it'll take longer to get down to that sustained volume. If I adjust the sustain slider, you can see that it adjusted the sustain level. And then again with the release, if I adjust that, it changes the distance between this third point and the last point. A complex envelope doesn't only use these four parameters like a simple envelope does. In fact, let me open up a complex envelope preset to show you what it can look like. We see now that this isn't just a simple attack, decay, sustain, and release. If I were to play this on the keyboard, it sounds like this. Let's take a look at some of the editing features in the envelope zoom window. So here I have this default ADSR envelope. If you right click somewhere on the line, it'll pull up this window right here, and then you can actually add another point right here. Once I've added another point, the envelope's no longer simple, now it's complex. If I right click on the line, this window gives me options for different shapes that I can put into the envelope. For example, a bump. It'll throw something like that into the envelope. All of these shapes can be moved around and adjusted. These tabs on the left also help with editing. If I toggle the snap icon, what that's going to do is snap all of these points to a grid that's quantized. When I toggle this lock icon, everything to the right of the point I'm moving becomes a group and it moves it all together. If I toggle this XY icon, that means I can only make movements in vertical and horizontal lines. The fine icon allows me to make smaller adjustments that are more fine-tuned. If I toggle the scale icon, everything will behave as a big group, and when I make changes, it will stretch the entire group like this. This chaos button right here allows me to make random changes to the envelope. You can control how much random you want by these sliders right here. This slider determines the randomness of the curves. This slider determines the randomness of the levels of the different points. You can use the wheel on your mouse to zoom in and out, or you can use this slider, or if you hit this auto zoom button, what it'll do is it'll fill the entire window with the envelope, like that. If I hit this loop button right here, what'll happen is after I hit the note and it makes its way down to the sustain, it'll loop back onto itself. It sounds a little bit like this when I hold a note. You can hear it going down to the sustain level and then back to the beginning and restarting. If you hit this sync button, it'll sync the grid of your envelope to the BPM of whatever your DAW is. If you're not using this sync button, you can just use this speed slider right here to manually change how fast you want it to move through the envelope. Some envelopes give you access to these three tabs right here which say Note, Legato, and Song. Note means every time you play a new note, it's going to restart the envelope. Legato means that you'll continue to move through the envelope as long as you're playing the notes in legato. Once you play a note not in legato, it's going to restart at the beginning of the envelope. Song means that the envelope will stay at a consistent rhythm at some tempo, no matter what note you're playing or when you play it. This velocity slider gives us more dynamic control over the volume when we play keys. If we play them soft, the notes are softer and they get louder in volume as we hit the keys harder. If we move this all the way down, it doesn't matter how hard we hit the key, it's going to come through the envelope at the same volume. If you look up here, you'll see other tabs. You'll see the filter tab and then 4 mod tabs. The amp and the filter envelopes are specific to this layer. However, the 4 mod envelopes affect both of the layers at the same time. Just like we use the amp envelope to control the volume, we can use the filter envelope to control the filter effect that we set up. In other words, the envelope determines how long it takes for the filter to open up, the decay of the filter, where it holds, and the release of it. These 4 tabs allow us to use the envelopes as modulation sources. If you don't know what modulation is, don't worry because that's in the next video. Another point to make is you can tell which type of envelope it is, whether it's simple or complex, by this icon right here. As you can see, the amp envelope here is a simple envelope. If I click over here on the mod, it shows it as something else, which is the complex envelope. That's it for the envelope window, you guys. Stay tuned in the next video. We're going to be talking about modulation.